Popcorn therapy. 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 Popcorn therapy.
Welcome to Popcorn Therapy. I'm James Pillion.
I'm Kane Senes.
And this is episode 1. And, well, shit, who knows what's going to happen on this one, but I'm excited. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Where are we? We're in King's Cross.
King's Cross, Sydney, Australia, the red light district.
Yeah, we are in the heart of the red light district.
Yep, my neighbours, 2 brothels to the right of us. Strip club, dollhouse, shout out across the road. So we're recording this from my apartment.
That's right.
You know, as you do in the lo-fi podcast world. But it's a good space. We're sitting around a nice big wooden round table.
We're filmmakers, okay?
Yep.
We love fucking films.
We love movies.
We can't help it.
Nope. Cinema is church.
And, well, that's the therapy part.
That's the therapy.
Cinema as church, you know?
Yep.
Cinema is church.
Yep.
And so we're here to heal ourselves and hopefully you guys too.
Yeah. Or, you know, just be as fucked up as we are.
Either or, you know.
Join in the human experience.
It, you know, it doesn't hurt one way or the other, does it?
No.
Kane and I have known each other for quite a long time.
Went to the same high school. 2008, I went to film school in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I graduated in 2010. And I think you might have reached out about what my time there was like, because you joined, I think maybe you went there a year or 2 years after me.
That's right.
Right? So that's how I think we got back in touch. And
That's
I'm
right.
like, James, yeah, I remember you from school. You know, I was obviously familiar with your name. But we hadn't come up together. We hadn't come of age together. And I think we actually only moved in together after you had graduated.
That's right. That's right.
And we were both making stuff, and you know, we were there, and we were on the grind.
Yeah, I just moved on from a heartbreak.
Yep.
So I was really
As I had just before I moved in,
Wow,
a long
about
relationship that ended, and we kind of each met each other's, you know, new girlfriends.
That's right.
Our move along relationships.
This is a great story.
It really was, man. It was a fork in the road of 2 young men's lives. You know, 2 dinky die Aussies that went to go make it under the bright lights of Hollywood, and learn a lot. And and we bonded over our love of movies.
So, you know, you and I sort of really reconnected over trips to the movies.
Well, dude, you had shot your movie in Romania,
Right, right.
far from here.
Mm-hmm.
I shot my film in Austin, Texas. We'd both gone through the wars. We had made our first features. And, you know, life gets in the way. And then a couple of years later, we were just kind of reconnecting back here and just sharing some of those war stories and realizing, man, this person's probably got most in common with me than like anybody in my life. Like there's older friends, there's these friends, there's that friends. But in terms of just following the same path, literally grew up in the same part of Sydney, pretty much.
Yeah.
Went to the same high school. Went to not the same universities, but post-grad we met up there.
That's right.
Right? Went to the same film school. And, you know, lived in the same house.
Yeah.
In the same city. Same city in LA. Same city back here in Sydney. And the same interests.
Wow.
A lot of the same interests.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's a unique thing. And I remember thinking, you know, my belabored girlfriend, Hannah, who I constantly just talk to in the kitchen ad nauseum about my day and all my psychoses, just said, you know, you need a podcast to save our relationship. And it was right around that time that James said, I got to talk to you about something, man. And we went out to backcountry.
That's right.
Backcountry? Yeah.
Backcountry.
In Randwick, across the street from the Randwick Ritz.
One of the shout out Randwick Ritz.
Best cinema in town.
The best cinema in town.
Yeah. Art Deco, beautiful. Great programmers there. And you know, and you said, do you want to do a podcast with me? And I'm a very indecisive person. That was the fastest yes I've given in my life.
Wow. In terms of why I wanted to do this with you, is I just really enjoyed our conversations. Yeah. And I wanted a way for us to have it on a more repetitive basis, because we're both busy people and it's hard to find the time to just chill, to just sit down, have some dinner and talk about the thing that we love.
Yeah.
And I think this is also on a more generous idea. It allows other people that share like-minded interests of ours, hopefully, to sit with us, to have a good time, to chill back, have a glass of whiskey, and just see where the night takes us.
I remember when you were like, "What do you want to do a podcast about?" The first thing that came out of my mouth was this quote I read. This Paul Schrader quote that I heard. You know, Paul Schrader, the great writer of Taxi Driver. He recently made the Ethan Hawke film First Reformed.
That's right.
Last year, which was a little seen film, but was really great. He said this really telling thing about how we don't look to the movies for answers anymore. This is what Paul Schrader had to say about then compared to now. There are people who talk about the American cinema of the 70s as some halcyon period. It was to a degree, but not because there are any more talented filmmakers. There's probably, in fact, more talented filmmakers today than there were in the 70s. What there was in the 70s was better audiences. A lot of what was happening in the world had people in consternation: women's rights, gay rights, sexual liberation, drug liberation, anti-war. All of these things were rolling on top of each other, and people were turning to the arts, specifically movies, for what we should feel about this. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice about wife swapping, and Coming Home about Vietnam veterans, and Unmarried Woman about female liberation. So almost one a week, films were coming out to address these things that were on people's minds. When people take movies seriously, it's very easy to make a serious movie. When they don't take it seriously, it's very, very hard. We now have audiences that don't take movies seriously, so it's hard to make a serious movie for them.
We got to put this in the show notes. I mean, this is like, that's profound.
You know, we don't go to the movies for answers on our lives and on society and on what's going on in the world. We just think of them as something to unwind, to distract at the end of a long day, because we're on this constant treadmill of just moving forward and keeping up with the Joneses, and the stream rushes past and no one goes to go, hang on a second, something's not right. This filmmaker is speaking to me. I need to go see that. I need to sit in a dark room and have it wash over me and come out feeling like I've been to church. Come out feeling like I've had a religious experience. And believe it or not, you can still get that at the movies, but you got to give it a go.
I know it for a fact. And it's funny that you say it. I think unconsciously I've been reflecting on this exact point. Ever since I started meditating, just over a year ago, it's really made me reflect on just how much I throw myself into the culture. I'm someone that feels like you can't really comment on something unless you've thrown yourself in some capacity, unless you've put your foot in or you've dived head first. But I have found that in doing that, especially in this new age of the streaming economy, I have found myself taking certain things for granted, and in some way trying to keep up. Maybe binging 3 episodes or 4 episodes of something just to say like I'm up to date. And I do think there's something really scary, as you sort of put it so well, just being on this treadmill and never being able to get off.
Yep.
We wake up. What's the first thing I do? Unconsciously, I open fucking Instagram. I open social media. No reason. No fucking reason.
Just a habit.
Just a habit. We need to find time to switch off and appreciate things that we no longer appreciate. This culture that we live in, it's a fast food culture. It's fast fashion, fast everything, fast content.
Fast media, fast content.
How quick can I eat this, without before I get indigestion? And I think, if you're listening to this, then fuck, I think you're a hell of a lot better off, because you're just asking questions. You're wondering, is there more to this thing called life?
Yeah, and I think that's why we're doing this, right? Because neither of us freaking have those answers.
No.
And we're just trying to figure out if we're going down some perilous path. But at the end of the day, it's all we want to do is make movies. So we've kind of set out into that, down that path. And there's fits and starts, and and who knows where it's going to lead. But ultimately, we just want to create stuff. And I think when you're creating stuff, you've got to think about things a little bit and actually stop and not just be on this treadmill of life. And so if anyone wants to, just hang with us and just get off that treadmill for a second, I mean, I feel like that's all we're doing here.
That's all we're doing.
And everything else is just the icing on the cake.
This is a perfect time to get back.
Yes, let's
to the
go back.
top five of the
Go-
teens.
Okay.
Top 5 films.
I love this. I love how long it took us to get back.
I know.
We like, as a people, as a society, these days in the social media world, it seems that we like to make lists. We like list making.
We're listicle. The listicle generation.
Listomania.
All right, let's hear it, baby. Let's hear it.
I'm just going to rattle off some of my favorite films of this decade, in no particular order. Here we go. Mad Max Fury Road, Inside Llewyn Davis, The Master, The Tree of Life, Before Midnight, Blade Runner 2049, Ex Machina, Drive, The Social Network, Arrival, Moonlight, Her, Interstellar, Inception, Get Out, Birdman, The Shape of Water, Into the Spider-Verse, Sorry to Bother You, Black Klansman, Captain America, Winter Soldier. I'm sorry. I had to.
It's out there now.
It came naturally. It wasn't because it's a Marvel film. I really like that movie.
It's a good movie.
Black Swan, kicking off the decade. Shame, Warrior, Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Oh.
Whiplash, Nightcrawler, Anomalisa, stop motion animation.
Yes.
Charlie Kaufman.
Charlie, shout out.
Hell or High Water, and A Star Is Born.
Fuck, that is a great list, Kane. Okay, well, I'm going to give you 2 films that you can talk about from the decade and why.
2,
baby. That's all you get.
I think we should limit this maybe to the films that tie into what we're all about here at Popcorn.
Oh, that's good.
Films that at least really cut through to me to make me think about the person I am, maybe, or about just that rattled me, that weren't just great films, right? Like Mad Max Fury Road is the greatest accomplishment in action, moving stunt choreography that I've ever seen.
Man, George Miller has still got it.
And most of it was all in camera.
Yeah.
He was 70 years old when he directed that.
Motherfucker.
It is a true towering achievement in just take art out of it. It is just a towering achievement in technical cinematic proficiency, visual screen language, the understanding of sound, of an audience's expectation of a film and of toppling it, of just smashing it. So I say that didn't make me reflect on who I am. Okay, the number 1 film I have is Inside Llewyn Davis, 2013.
Okay, and what was it? I mean, I love that film. It was really, for me, the breakout of
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac,
who everyone knows now from the recent Star Wars films.
That's right.
Poe Dameron, the Han Solo rehash. Anyway, let's not go there. So Inside Llewyn Davis, to put it simply, is about a folk musician in New York in the 60s. When there was a real scene happening there, especially in the West Village. You had the West Village and the East.
Cafe Wa.
Essentially where Bob Dylan was first discovered.
That's right.
Right? When he was first playing late night sets at bars.
In the coffee houses.
It's that neighborhood. And so it's basically saying, hey, this is a guy who's incredibly talented and is just broke. He's crashing on friends' houses. He's going around to auditions. He cashes the occasional check as a studio musician to come in and play guitar for bigger acts who aren't as good as him.
Yes,
and I think that's an important. Like you're looking at this guy going, no one knows how good this guy is. And, you know, then when he finally gets a chance to prove how good he is and gives just this incredible audition, just sitting there with a guitar and singing his heart out. And it's just like this 3-4 minute unbroken take on him. You know, Oscar Isaac, the Coens have said they couldn't have made this movie if they didn't find Oscar Isaac, because they needed to find a guy who's a good actor, who's got not just a good voice, but like a heartbreaking voice, and can really play the guitar. Wow. And so they found Oscar Isaac, who had been in Drive, had been in Drive with Ryan Gosling, was the like the abusive husband,
That's
or the
right.
partner of
Quite a small role, but yes, that's
of the
right.
Carey Mulligan character. And so everyone was like, who's this guy? So that kind of put him on the map. So they got onto Oscar Isaac, and it just, you know, the soundtrack is still one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. And just listening to him, if he was a recording artist, I would be a fan. And he's never actually really done anything with that. So he's just so good in that movie, and it just makes you feel like this guy deserved to get to where he wanted to get to, right? And by the end, the film ends with him getting punched up in an alley outside the club as Bob Dylan plays one of his earliest on record, kind of like his breakthrough early sets, where people started to take notice of him in the West Village there. That's
right. Early 60s, yeah.
And it's heartbreaking, because you're like, this guy's never going to get there, and he won't now because they've discovered Bob, and Bob got there first. And so it really, for me, I interpret it as a film about being a filmmaker, because I don't think, no matter how successful you get, I think your fear is always, I'm going to make a bad film next and people are going to abandon me. Yeah. And I'm never going to reach my heroes. They wouldn't think of themselves as some of the greatest filmmakers of all time, like I think of them. Or especially as possibly in the discussion of the top 3 greatest living American filmmakers. And yet they're making a film about, like, what if I fail and never make it? So, you know, there's an interesting thing going on there, but it feels so genuine and it hit me so hard. It's almost felt like it was, and this sounds narcissistic, but it spoke like this to, I'm sure, all artists that feel like they have a lot to prove with their art, who believe in themselves. It just really hit home and felt like it was kind of written for me. Most people, it's like, if you work hard at that job, you get a promotion and you work your way up, and there is a clear path to that success. But for what we do, it often comes down to right place, right time, and that's a terrifying thought to bank your life on.
You summed it up really well. I'd never really put 2 and 2 together about the filmmaker analogy, but it's so true. It is so true. It's a time and a place. And I've watched that film countless times, and it gets better with every viewing.
Yeah. A film that I love from this decade, which is 2011's Warrior. Tom Hardy and Nick Nolte, Australia's Joel Edgerton.
I don't think I've ever fucking seen it.
You have to see Warrior.
Oh, shit.
It's the UFC movie.
It's dark. It moves.
It's a really great crowd pleaser. Everyone that watches it likes it.
Wow.
Because it's American filmmaking at its finest, but it was made on a modest budget, kind of out of the public eye. It was, I think it's Tom Hardy's best performance. And it's just about these 2 estranged brothers and their alcoholic father and the trauma they went through as they progressed through a wrestling tournament.
Wow. But the notion of trauma is a huge part of it, isn't it?
It's a huge part. And here's a bit of therapy in motion, all right?
Here we go.
You're like my unofficial therapist. And in talking about Warrior and saying it's a story about father and sons, I realized that I think the reason it moved me so much, you know, I've got 2 older brothers, dad, and you know, there's a lot of pride in my family, a very you know, for better or worse, very kind of male centric, patriarchal family, which I've tried to pull away from in many ways, and I'm the youngest by 11 and 15 years with my 2 brothers. So they're almost like another generation, or at least another half generation. Yeah. And they're kind of quite old fashioned, more like my old man in a way. So they're definitely an older generation. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a divide there. Although I love them and I'm very proud of our relationships. But I think the film got to me on a way that I've never actually processed before.
Fuck.
And for that reason alone, I just think it's worth shedding a spotlight on, because, you know, watch it.
Dude, that is one of the best stories I've heard.
Is it a good pitch?
Because that is what cinema can do. It can reach you in a place, and it might not hit you at the time. It might just blow your mind. It might just make you feel like, fuck yeah, like that felt amazing to watch. But then with time, you start to reflect, as Kane has about Warrior, which now that you're saying it, I believe I have watched it many years ago. But it can make you look at your life and say, wow, I know what these characters are going through because I've gone through it in some capacity.
And you know, the fact that you may have seen it, but it didn't hit you the way it hit me, you know, maybe it didn't speak to you in that way.
Right.
And maybe you were like, this is a proficiently made movie. I enjoyed it. Like 99% of the films you watch are.
Yep.
Like they're incredible movies. But did they... were they like just pieces of art that smacked you in the face and that you couldn't look away from and have stuck with you ever since? Well, what's something off the top of your head that you've seen maybe in the light, you know, don't even think about the year, but just where you remembered it really affecting you?
I got us to go see Ad Astra.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm going there.
Oh yeah.
Because
It's in my top 10.
okay,
It's in my top 10.
All right. Well, this is number one for me.
Yeah, maybe
for a
top
few reasons. But I'd seen it, I believe, the week before, and I told Kane we just had to go. We just had to go watch it,
You got me there, man.
and I got you there
To the Randwick Grits again.
Yeah.
Shout out, Randwick Grits.
Shout out.
We're looking for a sponsor. It's not going to cost much. We're a very low cost entity.
That's right.
This was the night you
This
pitched the
was-
podcast
this is
at
Bat
Bat
Country.
Country,
Yeah.
and you were taking me to Ad Astra.
Yeah.
It was a very formidable evening.
It really was.
There's maybe only a handful of those in the year.
I think it's going to go down as one of the memorable nights of 2019 for me.
Long story short, Ad Astra was on the list. I just hadn't gotten around to it.
Okay.
And I'd missed the major run in theaters, and I just knew, I don't think this is one I can miss in theaters.
And you know what? That's probably the biggest reason that compelled me to put this at the top of the list is it's pure cinema.
But you know, it's science fiction and realism, but it's also making it a fun, rollicking ride. And for that fact, I think it's a genre film, and so it's not afraid. It's not afraid to kind of. I think it's unapologetically a piece of popcorn entertainment, but very intelligently done.
Well said, because that's really what it is. It's that great balance between the two that kept me in my seat. And I was just, I could have watched another few hours of it. For me, it was just a beautiful way to tell an enormous story in the space of 2.5 hours.
I think there's a big allegory going on in Ad Astra, not to give anything away.
Well, I would say that this movie, to me, is the definition of popcorn therapy, because it's this notion that you can sit and you can just revel, you can just relax, but at the same time, it's teaching you a story in a really subconscious way.
So Ad Astra is officially the mascot of the show until another film comes along.
I like this.
All right? We fly the Ad Astra flag until that hill is captured by someone else. A lot of these top films of the decade polls that I've been reading have often had The Social Network as the best film of the decade.
Wow.
And I think that's got to do with the fact that it's just, you know, potentially that good a movie, full stop. And also it tapped into something that we all, that it spoke to all of us, which was, oh, this is how Facebook came to be.
Right.
Oh, I can't remember my life without Facebook, you know, leading into, you know, Instagram and everything else. And I don't know, I feel like I can't fault anyone that says that's the best film of the decade. It's not my favorite film. I think it's a cult film we'll rewatch and rewatch because Aaron Sorkin's writing and dialogue is just so quotable. And, you know, Fincher's just kind of scenes and shots, and it's just a film that has infinite rewatchability.
Yes. But I think on a more primal level, the story is a discovery kind of tripping over, Mark Zuckerberg tripping over the fact like that is now very, very clear that we want to be validated. We want to be validated.
Right, and
You
that's
know?
where we're at in this decade.
That's where we
That's
are.
our human experience.
2019, it's all about validation.
Yeah.
You know, we post a photo, not necessarily for our own benefit, sadly, but to show the world that we're sexy, we're fun, we're adventurous, we're daring, you know, or we're just fucking millionaires, you know, whatever it is. And that, I believe, is the reason why The Social Network probably is the most defining film of the teens.
Hey, James.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I'm turning this question back on you. What two films from the decade spoke to you the most?
Okay, well, I'm gonna be Judas here. I'm gonna avoid the question because I'm not very good at lists. Okay, but one thing that I've been thinking about a lot this week, you know, the last fucking week of the decade, man, is how we got here, where we are with culture, with content, and where we were 10 years ago. And I was thinking about this, you know, we were talking about it just before we started recording. I didn't have a smartphone in 2009. You know, I didn't have Instagram or Twitter or any of that shit. I was a pretty simple kid with a little Nokia and a Facebook account, and I didn't stream. I didn't have Netflix. I didn't have any of these Amazon Primes or anything. I rented movies from a DVD store. Really, that's where I was 10 years ago. And I think I've just been evaluating how much it's impacted the culture, but also what we watch and how we watch it. You know, the last 10 years, I mean, even 2009, but there has been even more of a renaissance in TV. We've been seeing all the major players in Hollywood and the foreign box office moving to the streaming platforms, having their films funded by companies that weren't around 10 years ago. That's pretty phenomenal, right?
Yeah. The whole industry has changed.
Yeah.
It's all changed.
And
It's been a giant decade of change.
And it's funny because I wrote about it last week in my newsletter, but I was listening to this Broken Record podcast. Malcolm Gladwell, he's this incredible investigative journalist and writer, and he's got a new podcast with Rick Rubin.
Jay-Z's record producer.
That's right. Yeah. One of the biggest record producers of the modern age. And they speak with Bon Iver about his life, about just his career in the business. And he was talking about the making of his first record, Forever Ago, in 2007, and how important boredom was in the process of creating that. In a little cabin in Wisconsin, for over 3 months, he just sat making music, drinking beers, watching Northern Exposure.
It's a great show.
Yeah, and you know, I think it really hit me when I was listening to that last week because of where I am right now and how little boredom has a part in our modern world. You know, if you're bored, you start streaming. If you're bored, you open Instagram. And how important it was for me, you know, in my teens, early 20s, of just being a human being.
Yeah.
Apart from that little tangent there, I have really considered the films of this year with the help of a few websites. One that was really overlooked that I went to see with my folks recently, Judy. Judy, directed by Rupert Goold, is about the final years of Judy Garland. It really gets at the heart of the human condition, like just the human experience, and shows us. Rupert does an amazing job, and sadly, I don't have the name of the screenwriter, but
It was written by Tom Edge.
Tom Edge, that's right. Shout out Tom Edge. You fucking nailed that screenplay because it takes you into the early years and helps you understand who this older woman is. Judy was an alcoholic. She was a drug addict, and was deeply wounded from her early years in showbiz. And for any of you that don't know, Judy Garland is most famous for The Wizard of Oz in the late 30s. What I really loved is it got to the heart of just human nature and the fact that trauma catches up. No matter how fast you run, no matter how hard you try.
I'll tell you what, man. That's a very good life lesson, or just to know that trauma catches up with you. Because I think you can boil it down, and this is something I've been really learning this year with just things I've had to work through, people I love and myself, and being home again after about 8 years in LA for the last couple of years, being back here in Australia. Trauma catches up with you, and there's a lot of things come out of the woodworks, and people, I think, like to run from that trauma or bury it deep down. I don't want to sound too Dr. Phil. This is not a Dr. Phil podcast, but I love a film, right? I love a film that can kind of capture that, and you relate to that.
Mm-hmm. We're all fallen creatures, and I think the more we can learn to understand that and to respect that, I think the better we'll be as a society. And now that I'm saying it, that is a fundamental basis for why I want to do this podcast with Kane.
I'm just more interested in whether this is Renee Zellweger's comeback or not.
Well, actually, can I just...
Superficial film talk version of it.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because Renee, and I'm sorry for not shouting out earlier, but Renee Zellweger is back. She fucking brings Judy Garland to life. There were so many moments I had to pinch myself and say, oh, wait, this isn't Judy. This is a film about Judy.
So she had you at a low.
Oh, yeah.
I had to.
Shout out Jerry Maguire. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving. The King, David Michôd. You can watch that bad boy on Netflix. One of my favorite movies from this year as well.
Yeah. Haven't seen it yet.
Oh my God. See, this
homework.
is the kind of thing, people, that I'm going to give Kane a lot of shit for.
Yep.
Because that's the kind of quality content that he needs to be spending some time on. So it's got Joel Edgerton, Timothy Chalamet, for all you young millennials out there. That young man, he's got
James Dean.
Oh.
Whoa, too big a call?
Well, no, I don't know. I think he's the new Leo DiCaprio.
Oof. Yeah. Don't dethrone the king yet.
Well.
He ain't dead.
Shout out to Leo. I love you. I'll always love you.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, man. I saw that film. I was like, he's winning the Oscar. No one is stopping this guy. And then Brad Pitt and Astra came out.
Hey, Brad Pitt and
Joaquin Phoenix
Once Upon a Time. Come
true.
on, woof, man. That guy.
Can we just agree that Brad Pitt won 2019?
Can I? Yeah. Well,
He won it. He won it.
I think we need to have an award, and it goes to Brad Pitt. BP.
It's going to Brad Pitt more than it ever has. And that's just a fine wine aging well.
And can I just say, as Brad Pitt's ultimate stan over here, for anyone that missed out on his GQ cover earlier this year, it's some of the sexiest photos you're going to see of 2019. Okay?
Okay.
You're welcome.
You've deep dived on Brad. You're officially...
That's a sidebar right there.
You're officially on the take.
What else have you got?
I got John Wick 3. And I just want to say that before you say that's such a dude's movie, it is the greatest piece of stunt choreography I've ever seen. It's Keanu Reeves riding a horse along a highway having a sword fight.
In New York City.
On the horse in a wide shot where they didn't fake it. He's on a horse. Dude might be on a harness, but he's riding that horse having that samurai fight. And that is that dude's in his mid-50s.
Can we also just take a quick second here to just give a big shout out to Keanu, who I also think has tied with BP, with Brad,
for winning the year.
For winning the year.
I think it might be the year of Keanu. I mean,
think
everyone's
also-
talking about Keanu.
Everybody's talking about
I'm talking
Keanu.
Brad on a very specific film knowledge level, but socially, in a broader cultural sense, it's Keanu's year. I mean, there's no doubting that, for sure.
Now, I'm blanking on the name, but he was in a comedy recently.
Always Be My Maybe.
Always Be My Maybe. Shout out.
The Ali Wong and the Ali Wong movie.
Ali Wong has made a movie which is really very sweet, very cute, very funny, and Keanu, wow. I mean, he fucking steals the thunder at one point.
I saw a meme how he picked up his Christmas tree on his Porsche the other day. Did you see that?
No.
He typed it to the top of his black 911.
Ah, woof.
And he was just in like a black beanie, sunnies, and his beard.
Now,
he was just doing it himself.
Can I just say that that's something that I'd aspire to later in life? Okay, so I'm going to keep moving. Dolomite is my name. That's Craig Brewer. And that is Eddie Murphy's return to like drama. And I'm talking about like real drama. Like the old school fucking 1980s, 90s Eddie Murphy.
Oh, wow.
So it's based on the real life story of this African-American film director.
Rudy Ray Moore.
Rudy Ray Moore was really, I think, mostly famous in the African-American community in the 1970s, but he did have a lasting impact in bringing this kind of, well, it wasn't his intention, but a self-parodying aesthetic to the film business, I think, or just to films as a whole. A big honorable mention goes to The Irishman.
Yeah.
Kane and I are both Martin Scorsese diehards. Kane, I think he takes the cake on it, but Scorsese has made his magnum opus. This is the end of the gangster genre for him, I think, sadly. But I think he's gone out with a bang, and he's brought a very melodramatic look at not only just the life of a gangster, but just as a human being, and especially just looking at a filmmaker who's 77 now, someone who knows that the best years are behind him, and he brings that into the main character, Frank Sheeran, who Robert De Niro just like fucking nails, as he always fucking does. This film is fucking epic. It's a feat of filmmaking.
And you know what? Everyone jumps the number one. You bring up The Irishman with someone, and the number one thing people say is,
it's too long.
it's too long though. If you're going out at night and the night's okay, you might stay out with your friends a couple hours and you'll look for an exit. If it's really good,
You're just
5 hours pass and you're like,
you're going to see
shit.
the sunrise.
I wasn't conscious of the time watching this film because it's really good.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really frustrating when people judge something based on a number or it being an anecdote that's, become a meme in society. Like, yeah, this film is too long. We get it. It's a 3.5 hour movie. It's gonna get shit for being a 3.5 hour movie in 2019 when our attention spans have shrunk to the point of zero.
Martin Scorsese making this movie is the ultimate, like, fuck you to this current, like, more generation, What else can I consume today? And it's like, why not take time to pick and choose, what you ingest rather than just eating it all? Kane, I'm noticing the sand time is running out here.
Yeah, okay.
So to round us out, I wanted to know if you've been thinking about, if you've been getting excited about any films that are coming out in the future, in 2020.
Well, the number one film I'm looking forward to is Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
Oh, shit.
Which is Kevin Smith's... Kevin Smith's kind of... his coming home back to the View Askew-niverse, right? Films like Chasing Amy, Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. The stories about slackers and kind of no-hopers that started with these films in the early 90s and kind of went through the 2000s a little bit. And this is the long-anticipated sequel to that. And in the realm of being kind of meta, Kevin Smith is like, well, everything is a reboot these days. So I'm actually going to retell Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back almost like scene for scene, and I'm going to comment on the nature of reboots with my own IP, which is Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh shit!
So I'm
He's very meta.
I'm very looking forward to that. That's number one on my list. And some people would say, "Oh, that's your guilty pleasure." I love Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
I love his films. I love how they make me feel, and especially those first four, and a return to that era. But while commenting on the way we currently consume films and content, I'm very excited to see what he does with that.
Fuck yeah! Where's Kevin Smith from, by the way?
New Jersey.
We're staying in pretty much the same universe, just across the river. I'm going with the Safdie brothers.
Ah, yeah.
I am very, very excited to see Uncut Gems. I know it's out there in stateside at the moment, but it's not out down under. And just this week, I listened to this incredible fucking A24 podcast with the Safdie brothers, Josh and Benny Safdie, in conversation with Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh, man.
And they're just riffing, and they're going down some deep holes about Adam Sandler. Both of them have worked with him. Paul Thomas Anderson with Punch Drunk Love, 2002. It's a phenomenal, really sad, bittersweet love story with some really dark humor to boot.
A great unsung Philip Seymour Hoffman performance.
Shit.
Rest in peace.
He is so good as this furniture dealer.
We're taking a swig of whiskey in.
Let's do a little. We're doing a little drink for you, Phil.
In Phil's honor.
Wherever you are, we're thinking of you.
Rest in peace.
So, look, essentially, just to finish off what I was trying to say with the podcast, where they speak with PTA, is essentially the essence of it is love for them. What happens when you can't see anything else but that thing in front of you, and no matter how long it takes to get there, that's where you're going. That's the end of the road. Uncut Gems is a film about filmmaking. How no matter what is in your path, you're going to find a way through. So I'm very excited to see that.
I think there's a commonality there. I think with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and Uncut Gems, it's both these comments on filmmaking. One from an old dog who's kind of had a lot of hits in his past.
Yeah.
And he's reflecting back and trying to find that love again. For his ideas of his youth, right? And then another one's from these just hungry motherfuckers that are just hungry to just put work out there. They're clawing from strength to strength, and they're on like a hell of a streak right now.
Yeah.
And so they're like the young hungry dogs who are coming up.
That's actually a really interesting.
But they're both reflections
side by side.
But they're both reflections on filmmaking.
Totally.
And trying to connect with that artist experience by conveying it to the masses.
And well, I think that's where we end it for today. Thanks for listening.
We're going to catch him in 2020.
Yeah, guys, we're going to be catching you in 2020. Okay. So this is a message in a bottle podcast. Whoever finds us,
send out a distress beacon. So where do they find us on the interwebs?
Okay. So you can find us on Instagram at Popcorn Therapy Podcast, or if you're looking on the WWWs, it's popcorntherapythepodcast.com.
You're kind of witnessing these defining moments in the life of this podcast right before your eyes.
The birth.
That's how DIY we are and how open we are.
You're already in the future, so have a lovely 2020. And
we hope you've trashed yourself, trolleyed yourself.
That's right.
On New Year's Eve.
Yeah, like a total fucking train wreck.
Yeah, Aussie style.
Woo! Toodaloo.
Peace.